Welcome back to Koine Corner. Today we're looking at Jesus' last words spoken from the cross right before he died. On that day, we're told that Jesus committed his mother Mary into the care of John, and then seeing that all was complete, that it was time to end his earthly ministry, he spoke the words, "I am thirsty, I thirst." And we're told that there on the scene was a jar containing the sour wine of the Roman soldiers, that they took a sponge and soaked it, put it on a branch of hyssop, and lifted it to his mouth. And we pick up the story in John chapter 19, verse 30, where it says, "Then when he had received the sour wine, Jesus said, 'It has been finished.' And he bowed his head and gave up the spirit." And that's my translation of John 19:30. Our focus today is Jesus' final word. In Koine, it's Tetelestai. And the translation of that word is, "It has been finished." Let's take a look at it in Koine. Tetelestai comes from the noun telos and the verb teleo. And the noun telos means an end or a purpose, or what would constitute fulfillment. What is the intended purpose of a thing or a person or a plan? That's its telos. The verb teleo is completing, fulfilling, or finishing something. And so from this, we get this great little word, tetelestai. And let's take a look at it in Koine. It's going to get a little grammatical here today. Tetelestai. It's a third person singular use of this word. So first person singular I, second person singular you, third person singular he, she, or it. When it's not a person, it's usually translated it in English. It's in the indicative mood. The indicative mood is sort of the mood of exposition. It's the statement of reality from the speaker's point of view. So not the hypothetical, not probability or possibility, not an imperative where you're giving a command, or a vocative where you're calling to someone. This is a statement of fact as understood by the speaker. And it's in the passive voice. So the it is the recipient of the action. It is not the subject or the doer of the action. So the act, it here is being finished. It's not finishing. And it's in the perfect tense. And the perfect tense describes a completed action that has a durative effect or enduring consequence. So something that was already done, but the results of the doing still continues on into the present. So we translate that, this perfect tense, passive voice, indicative mood, third person singular, tetelestai, we would translate that to give it its fullness of thought. It has been finished and remains finished. So Jesus could have said, and John could have wrote, "It's done." But by using that perfect tense, it requires his reader, it requires the hearer to understand that the effect of this word, this tetelestai, is not just momentary, but it carries on beyond the time of the action. So to illustrate that, I want to talk a little bit about Pontius Pilate. So earlier in this chapter, the Jewish leaders come to Pontius Pilate. They say, "Hey, Ponch, we saw the sign at the cross, and it says, 'Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Jews.' That's really problematic for us. Could you please change the sign so that it says, 'Jesus of Nazareth, I claimed to be the King of the Jews.'" That takes the pressure off. And let's take a look at what Pilate said in response. Here in Koine, he said, "Ho gegrapha, gegrapha." So ho here, notice not just the rough breathing mark, but also the accent, is a relative pronoun. And standing by itself, it's that which. And then gegrapha, gegrapha. This is a perfect active indicative, first person singular. And it comes from grapho, I write. So it's perfect. Gegrapha, I have written. That which I have written, I have written. It perfectly illustrates the concept of the perfect tense. That which I have written, I have written. The writing is already done, but the effect of it continues on. It's not going to change. What I wrote remains in effect. Ho gegrapha, gegrapha. Let's go back to Tetelestai. It has been finished and remains finished. Well, what is this it? Is it the entire earthly ministry? Is it the passion from the week leading up to the cross? Is it the saving work of the substitutionary sacrifice of a sinless person in place of sinners? Is it all of the above? Well, chapter 19, verse 30 doesn't tell us what it is. I have to leave that to you. I suspect it's all of that and probably more. It's the fullness of the plan of salvation. It's the gospel of the incarnation. It's all of the Jesus story brought to its denouement, to its pinnacle, to its apex moment at the cross. And so whatever Jesus meant and whatever John, the redactor, the writer, meant with that last statement, that dying breath declaration, what we know from his choice of the present passive indicative third person singular is that it has been finished and continues to be finished. Its finishedness, if that's a word, if it's not a word, it should be a word, its finishedness endures, it carries on. So the purpose of Jesus is fulfilled and completed. And it's not just historically fulfilled and completed, it has a durative effect in its completion. It's still complete, it's still going on. So let's get to my two favorite words, so what? Why does this matter? If this it of Jesus' ministry is finished, it has been finished and continues to be finished, that means that it's framed in history in such a way that it's untouchable. Well, so what? Why does that matter? Well, one of the things that people tend to do to themselves and or to others is people read the Gospels, they hear the gospel message, they are drawn toward this plan of salvation, forgiveness for sins, eternal life, fire insurance, call it whatever you want to call it. And they soon find ways to try and add something to the story. It has been finished and remains finished, but surely I have to climb the sacred mountain. Surely I have to make the holy pilgrimage. Surely I have to make the big sacrifice to show my worthiness. It has been finished and remains finished, but it won't really be finished until I finally quit smoking or until I excise any of the profanities from my speech pattern. And listen, the New Testament very clearly has a do better aspect to it, right? That go and sin no more, right? We get that. I'm not disputing that at all. What I am saying is, what I think Jesus declares from the cross and what John, the redactor who writes down the story, is declaring with that choice of the perfect tense passive verb is he's telling you that the plan of salvation, the things that were necessary for salvation, have been finished, completed, brought to wholeness, and that remains. If you try to add to it, or if you try to force somebody else to add to it, or if you try to take something out of it, then you're disputing that it's been finished and remains finished. But that's the good news of Koine for us today. When we look at that word and we understand the perfect tense, the passive voice, the indicative mood, we know that this it, the third person singular, this it that is the fullness of Christ's work on earth on our behalf, it has been finished and continues to be finished. Tetelestai. If you find benefit in that, I hope you will please share with a friend who is not already a follower here at Koine Corner. Hit subscribe, like, share, do all that good stuff. Please visit the Facebook group and like that so that your influence can be felt by your friends, and they can learn a little bit more about this magnificent language that we call Koine Greek, the language in which the New Testament was written. Until we see one another again, charis kai eirene humin, grace and peace to you.